It is Monday, May 5th. We are here live. We had some serious audio issues there. I should have just stuck with my mobile setup that I've been using for the last month, except I wanted to back in the studio today, so I thought, well, I'll just go back to my regular studio setup. But it seems like what happened in the last month is the computer did an update, the phone system did an update, and nothing wants to play. So I'm back onto my mobile setup, and as far as I can tell, I believe everything is working. So I'm going to take a call and see if we have audio everywhere we need it. And if we do, we can continue on with the show today. So pick up the phone and join me. It is a free-for-all. We've got an hour left. 855-950-3835. Let's get to some calls. Let's go to West Virginia. David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Look at that. And your audio is going out on the app. Let's get started, and we'll see if your audio is also going out on the live stream. And if so, we'll be golden.
All right.
Well, look at that.
We still have the...
Everybody can hear you. So let's talk.
We still have our representative?
No, we don't. It was one. I had only planned on having Tracy on for about 15 minutes, and then we got talking. But then with the audio issues, it was easier just to let her go for now. We'll get her back someday.
Okay. I was just going to tell her that I've used their service quite a few times now. And it's been wonderful up until this last time. There was a site over in New Jersey that I'd stayed at a couple times, and it wasn't a bad spot. It could be, it is New Jersey. It was like, I'm pretty sure it's $15 a day. I stayed 3-4 days each time because I do some show loads where I gotta deliver and then sit and wait for stuff to be picked back up. And I was just over there this week, and I needed a place to stay, so I clicked on there to book, and to my not so great thing there, it went from $15 a night to $65 a night. And I just stayed there a week and a half ago, and I just trying to figure out how the price jumped so much in a week and a half.
Okay, well, let me help you with that, because I actually can help you with that.
Right.
And I think I can help clarify something for a lot of people. So Truck Parking Club, the company itself, does not own any properties. They don't lease properties. Yeah, and I want everybody else to understand it, because then you'll kind of understand some of these issues. And I'll make a comparison of my trip just now. So one of the things that Truck Parking Club would say in the beginning, I don't see it a lot now, they're the Airbnb of trucking. And that is a great analogy. Airbnb does not own any properties. Airbnb created a technology and an app and a company to be the in-between between property owners and people who want to book properties. Airbnb has virtually zero control over any of the properties you would rent on Airbnb. Truck Parking Club has some guidelines, but they don't control any of those properties. They're just connecting you to those properties. So any property can do whatever they want. They can charge whatever they want. There's no guidelines. They can change their number of spots. They can change their rules about how you park there. They can change their amenities, just like anybody who owns an Airbnb property can do whatever they want. It's their property. This is the go-betweens. Airbnb and Truck Parking Club are just there to connect the two parties. Now, they can help you with reservations. They can help you with problems. They can be the go-between. So they don't control pricing. So that would be the first thing to understand. It's not their property. They have no control over pricing. I can also help you with why a property might raise its price that fast, because what's happening in both the Airbnb world with vacation rentals and property rentals, and my guess is it may have already started happening. AI is now doing what's called dynamic pricing based on real-time supply and demand. So I own some properties that I will probably eventually put up on Airbnb. So I stay up on a lot of these topics. So the idea of, in my area, a property today, a vacation rental with this many square feet and this many amenities, normally sells for, let's say, $400 a night. It's an expensive property. It's big. It's in a high demand area, whatever. Well, with AI can know that that's the average price. But guess what? The big event on our river is happening, and every spot in the gorge is booked solid. And now the price just doubled because there's so much demand today. And that was almost impossible to do without AI. You would have to be on the computer nonstop all day long for all of your properties. But now if I have 10 properties, there are AI programs for Airbnb where I just connect all my properties. It monitors real-time supply and demand and creates what's called dynamic pricing. My pricing could change by the hour sometimes. Maybe that's what's happening with the truck parking spots. I don't know for sure, but something $15 to $65 that's insane. I mean, that is such a big increase.
Yeah, they pretty much priced me out of the market when it comes to that, because it was cheaper at that point because I was there for 4 days. It was cheaper for me to drive the 50 miles back to the truck stop.
Correct.
And pay them $25 a day to sit there.
Right. So here's what I believe had to have happened. Business owners don't just randomly, increase their prices 5 times. They would price themselves out of the market unless they know there is that much demand for that spot. Somebody is willing to pay it. That has to have been what happened. Somebody is willing to pay that higher price, and that's how a free market works. The price is determined by the market. If somebody needs a spot so bad they're willing to pay $65 and they fill up their spots, then they'd be insane to rent them for $15.
Yeah. Well, I kept watching that particular place just to see, because they had all their spots were open, and the whole time I sit there, they never went a day without having those spots open. So I think they made a mistake whenever they did.
Well, they could have.
But other than that issue, I only had one other time with Truck Parking Club. I booked a spot down in right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and they said they had 13 empty spots. So I booked my spot. I showed up. They only had 12 spots, period, and they were all full. But I just kind of parked off to the side. No one messed with me. I just called it good,
That is an issue that Truck Parking Club
and let them
would absolutely help you with. So there's 2 great issues that you've brought up. One is not under Truck Parking Club's control, and they don't try to control it, pricing. The other one, though, is absolutely. Yeah. They will absolutely step in and say, you can't advertise spaces and then tell our customers you don't have a space open. That's something they would absolutely enforce.
Yeah, because I know it was all a small trucking company's trailers, because all the trailers matched. They all had the same number on it, and the one spot that was empty had 3 cars parked in it.
Yeah.
So well, like I said, there was room off to the side. They said no parking, but I just parked there anyway. I probably could have called, and they would have tried to help me, but all the places around that I could have made it to were all booked up anyway.
Well, one of the things
it was unfortunate, but it worked out.
Yeah, you solved the problem on your own, but that may have been one of the ways they would help you. Not necessarily direct you to another property, because that's not a great solution. You wanted to be here. What they would do is get a hold of the property owner and say, you've got a problem. You told us you had spaces, you don't have spaces. And then somebody might have said, look, as long as there's room, tell him to park wherever, which is what you already did yourself. Or they would have said to that local trucking company that rents spots, you guys have taken more spots than you are allowed. You got to get in there and move your trailers, or whatever the situation would be, or the cars. Why were those in that spot? So that's where their team is excellent. They will reach out to that property. They'll get those kind of problems solved.
And they might have, because whenever I left my review, I just basically put that in the review.
Perfect.
Of the property.
Perfect.
Other than that, I mean, it was one of the weird kind of situations, because it was like the backside of a shopping mall kind of ordeal, and it was convenient to get in and out of all that stuff. So I wasn't complaining. It was quiet, other than the train that ran by.
And here's an example we had with Airbnb property. We just spent, I just spent about almost 6 weeks on the road, 2 trips. And I used a lot of Airbnb properties. And I love Airbnb. I hate hotels. I'd much rather stay in an Airbnb when I can. You just mentioned reviews. Reviews are important. Be honest about reviews, like you just did. All of these services, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, Airbnb, truck parking, reviews are important. Leave good reviews. Take a couple minutes. If you had a great experience, leave a good review. Leave a bad review and be honest. Here's the experience we had, and this makes me a little crazy about property owners. So we rented an Airbnb near my hometown. We know the area really well. Both Lisa and I grew up there. We loved the area this house was in. When you looked at the pictures, looked like a beautiful, tiny little property. It's all we needed. We figured we'd be able to pull the van into the driveway, hook it up, we'd be fine. We got there, nothing was what it really seemed like it should have been. The house was one of the worst flips I have ever seen. Somebody bought this, flipped it, turned it into an Airbnb, and the floors looked really nice because they had new floor coverings. They were so uneven, I got seasick walking around. I could just go on and on about all the problems with this property that you couldn't see in the pictures. But then what was shocking was the reviews were pretty strong. They were pretty good reviews. And I thought, this just seems odd, until we called because we had an issue. We actually couldn't find the light switch in the living room. I'm not even going to bother trying to describe where it was. Nobody would have ever found it. But while we were talking, the refrigerator and freezer were filled with food. And there were notes all over it saying, leave for owner. You don't do that in a rental. We needed to move a bunch of food in, and there was hardly any room. So I could go on and on about the problems. But when we called just to ask about something and we mentioned some of these things, the woman got really defensive, and all she kept saying was, well, that's not going to ruin my 5-star review, is it? What do I need to do to get my 5-star review? Well, first off, solve the problem I have right now and stop worrying about your review. Second off, you're not going to get a 5-star review because it's not a 5-star property. It's not even close. But all she kept saying was, what do I have to do? The laundry room was a disaster, and there were still clothes in both the washer and dryer. Well, her answer was she came over to the property and left laundry bags there, and she was going to take our laundry someplace else and wash it for us so she could get her 5-star review. But I don't want you washing my laundry.
Oh, my.
No, I don't care if you press it all and iron it and deliver it back in plastic. You're still not getting a 5-star review. But I could see what happened was she pressures everybody that stays there into just giving the 5-star review.
Yeah, which just hurts everyone else.
It does.
Comes the next time.
And that is that's not an Airbnb issue. I love Airbnb. I use them constantly. That's not their issue.
Yeah.
That's an issue with the property, and that's the difference. You've got the app that connects you to properties, then you have the properties themselves.
Yeah, but I've used Truck Parking Club in Jersey, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, and I know there's probably a couple that I just haven't thought of. But it's a great thing. I don't mind paying for parking. I was the one that when I went to the TA, I always paid for parking anyway, because less chance of getting your hood ripped off if you paid for one of the parking spots.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just always seem to be in a little bit better location.
Yep.
And it's just it's the thing of doing business. So
and
that doesn't bother me, but
your calls and your feedback is important. It's like a review in real time. It's why we will continue to bring them on the show. We'll take these kind of calls. We want the good stuff. We want the bad stuff. They're the same way. Anything they can do to improve that experience, they're trying to do. And that's one of the reasons we want to work with them. They didn't just come up with a great idea and throw it out there. They really care about the drivers. They care about the experience. It's a challenge. Nobody's ever done this before. There's going to be a lot of this kind of stuff to work through. But when we get feedback like you're giving, then we can say, okay, how could we have made that experience better? And I say we because I feel like we're that close of a partner with them.
Yeah, they're doing a great job. Like I said, there's a couple places that they stated they had, maybe one or two amenities that they truly didn't have. But for the most part, they're pretty accurate on the descriptions.
Good. Good.
The directions are pretty good in getting into most of them. There was, a handful that was kind of questionable getting into it the way they said, but that's where you just bring it up on Google Maps and kind of plot your own way if you're not worried about it. But
and with enough feedback, those kind of things will get fixed. Product. Perfect. Love it. All right. Thanks for the feedback.
That's exactly right. Hey, no problem. You have a good day.
All right. Take care. All right. Phone lines are open. I don't have any calls at the moment. It is a free-for-all. Anything goes. If you have a question, a comment, a topic, anything at all you want to talk about, pick up the phone, 855-950-3835, or hit that call now button on your app, and I'll take the calls when they come in. I have a ton of things I want to talk about, but let me get back to some of my notes. Just a bunch of odds and ends I've kind of been collecting over the last week or two that I just wanted to talk about, make some comments about while I'm waiting for some calls here. This is one I just saw this morning, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to look at this. So I'm kind of reading this one on the fly, but this caught my attention. It's a topic I'm interested in. I don't totally understand, so I'm trying to read as much as I can about it. So I'm just going to read some of this article to you. Freight Technologies, I believe they're talking about a specific company here, Freight Technologies. Yeah, it is. We're not just talking about freight technology in general. Freight Technologies, the company, stock soars after announcing Trump coin investment. I'm just kind of baffled by this. Freight Technologies stock more than doubled on May 2nd, my birthday, after announcing plans to buy Trump's meme coin. First of all, I'm just really struggling with the whole Bitcoin concept. Not that I don't understand how it works. I do. I don't understand why people are so enamored by it as an investment. I see it more as a currency that could take hold. It really hasn't yet. One of the problems with that is digital currency it's not one thing. It's the best analogy I could use is You can buy things with the US dollar, you can buy things with the Japanese yen, you can buy things with the Mexican peso or 1,000 other currencies around the world. But why would you? You are much better off using the currency of the country you're in. This is kind of the same thing. There isn't one Bitcoin. There are thousands of digital currencies now. And then there's the whole meme coin thing, which gets even more confusing. So I understand why a digital currency might catch on as a form of currency, but I don't really think we're there yet. There's too many places that don't take any digital currency, or do they take the digital currency you happen to have? So maybe there's a future for that. If that's the case, then there could be a future as an investment. I mean, you can certainly make investments in these things now, but it is outrageously risky for one big reason. I could go through thousands of little reasons why it's risky. Here's the big one. If you understand investing, you have to understand this. You need history of an investment to try to guess where the investment might go in the future. The longer history you have and the more you study that history, the more you might be able to predict where it's going in the future. But if you listen to every investment commercial, they're required to say this: past performance is not an indication of future performance. I think they use a different word, but you get what I mean. You can study the history of an investment all you want and still not be able to predict the future. I don't know why anybody, unless it's just pure speculative money, and some people do that, I don't know why you would be investing in digital currencies, Bitcoin, meme coins, things like that, as an investment other than a very, very risky speculative. The reason people do it is because they hear about it, they don't understand it. I mean, that's the reality. Most people are doing this, don't understand the risk they're taking. They can't explain the risk. They've never thought about the risk. But I don't understand, and this is the kind of stuff that proves my point. Companies' stocks do not double easily. And just the fact that they put some money into a Trump meme coin, the stock doubles. Why? Now you've got double the risk. You have the risk of the meme coin itself because this company invested money in it, and you have the risk of the company you're investing in. I think people have just lost their mind and they've been brainwashed by all the hype and excitement around this kind of stuff. It looks like they have invested. The company plans to start with a $1 million offering, potentially raising up to $20 million. Freight Technologies claims to be one of the first public companies making Trump coin a cornerstone of its digital asset strategy. The company previously acquired FET tokens from Fetch.ai, reportedly holding about $8 million worth. This follows a trend of companies like MicroStrategy using debt to fund cryptocurrency purchases. Trump's meme coin has faced criticism. I don't really care if Trump wants to make a meme coin, he can. I'm not investing in it. And it's not because it's Trump's, it's because it is a very, very risky investment. The project I was talking about several months ago, the company that approached us that was using AI and blockchain, I haven't heard from them in a couple of months. I haven't reached out to them because we had so many other things going on. One of the things I was concerned about, what they were offering to us for our services was fantastic. I couldn't understand how they were offering such a large return on the money you had sitting there. And one of the reasons was they were creating their own digital currency. And that was what the returns were based on. That was very, very speculative. So we are exploring other possibilities. I'm not saying we wouldn't work with this company if they reach out to us again. I doubt that I'm going to reach out to them. We have too many other things going on. If they reached out to us, I would see where they are in the process and still explore it. But if it were a requirement to have money in those funds, that would probably be a no for me. I just think all of this is way too speculative to be investing business money in, or even personal money, unless you understand how risky this is and how little we know about this, and we have no history. Now, somebody's going to call me or somebody's screaming at their radio, "You just don't get it, Kevin. You don't understand what a great investment this could be and how much money people are." No, I understand all of that. So please don't call me and tell me I don't understand. I do. I understand how risky this is. And I understand that somebody's going to become a billionaire on this. There's no doubt in my mind about it. But people become multi-millionaires by winning the lottery. And I never recommend buying lottery tickets. The odds aren't quite that bad on this, but they're pretty darn bad. The odds of people making a lot of money or even a little bit of money on this are pretty darn slim, and the risk is huge. It's just not for me. But it's not because I don't understand it. It's not for me because I do understand it. All right, let's go to Montana. Cole, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Can you hear me all right?
I can. You sound great. Let me double check while you're talking to see if we have your audio in the chat room.
You might have
to
disconnect me and move on with the call. I'm driving through Montana I-90 and don't have very good service. It's spotty here. But anyway, I've just been on vacation, so I've kind of been out of the loop for about a week. But plugged in this morning and heard you had some audio trouble, and then I had to deliver and I had to cut back. So anyway, so things are, how are things for you?
They are good. I am looking forward to settling down and getting back into my routine. We have so many projects I want to be working on, and I've been traveling for about 6 weeks. And traveling and trying to work on all the stuff I do is really difficult. I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. I was in a lot of meetings. We were doing a lot of driving. The plan had been that we were going to take some time on the way back and stay in some places we liked. And it just got to the point where I thought, I've got to get back to work. Got to get back on a schedule. And you know, it's there. And I want to. We are in such a crazy place right now, business-wise, economy-wise, our country. It's hard to explain all the things that are happening, but I've been trying to stay on top of all of them. Technology and AI, I know people are probably sick of hearing AI, but get used to it because this is a major revolution, major. And
yeah, I've been noticing that.
Go ahead.
A lot. You've mentioned that a lot, and I've really seen it on my end as a carrier. A lot of other people on your program have mentioned the new onboarding system called Highway.
Right.
It's not really all that new anymore, but you know, and they were kind of the first to do it. And what I'm talking about is tracking the truck via your e-log.
Yep.
And I guess almost all your e-log companies allow for a third-party integration.
Correct.
And so, and that's something they do for fraud. You know, to try to cut down on fraud. If they're tracking your ELD, it's a good chance. But anyway, what that does accidentally, it pretty much wipes out all of the e-log guys or all of the paper log guys, which I used to be one of those guys. So I had an older, 99 CAT engine, and I loved it. And, and now, if you have a 99 or an E-model CAT, you have a choice. You can do either one. It's legal for you to run paper, or you could plug in an ELD. So it doesn't really wipe out those guys, other than they have to change their systems. But now we've got another company that DAT bought out called Trucker Tools, and this company's been around for a long time. It's been one of the apps we've used to track loads.
Right.
Well, they were bought out by DAT now, and they're also doing the integration with the ELDs. I don't know how much AI is involved there. I think there is some. I'll tell you how much. The integration with your ELD doesn't have much to do with AI, but that is one thing that I'm going to try to get on top of.
I'll tell you how far ahead I am on this. And being ahead doesn't mean as much as it might mean, because it doesn't take much to catch up to somebody anymore. This is crazy what's happening, but I've done so much work and thought about this and where we're going, and I've been doing it for over a year, and I spend a lot of time on this. I had meetings last week with 2 software development companies, and before I could talk about my ideas, I had to get them up to speed on where we are in this AI revolution. These are software development companies, and I'm talking to the owners of them. And they swore, because I would ask them up front, how much do you know about AI? And they swore, well, we use it every day. We're completely up on this. And then I would ask them a couple other questions, and I would realize they're not. And I would start to tell them where we are on AI, and they would immediately push back. And they would get defensive, and I would just try to stop and say, look, don't shoot the messenger. If you don't understand this, you are going to be out of business in 6 months. And I was eventually able to get through to both of them and convince them that whether they like this or not, and they don't, it's happening. You can't stop it. So we can complain about it. We can, we can resist it. You can do whatever you want, but it's going to happen, whether we like it or not. And there are going to be huge downsides to it. I'll talk about the downsides first. It is so disruptive. It is going to wipe out entire industries that exist now. It's going to eliminate lots of jobs. That's the downside. My hope is that, like every other technology revolution, going all the way back to a farm tractor, which put a lot of people out of work, because a farm tractor and tools could do a lot more work than, one human. So it could replace 10 humans or whatever it might have been. Every technology prior to electronic technology, just machines, has done that. Knitting machines replaced thousands of, people who used to sew things by hand, typewriters, everything. Technology just makes it happen even faster. Every time we've done this, all the jobs that we eliminate get replaced and we add more. That's been the trend. You can go back and look. Every time we do this, jobs increase, not decrease. A lot of people just need to retrain, move to another industry, whatever it might be. I'm not so sure that's going to happen this time. I'm a little worried about that this is so powerful and gets more powerful every week that I don't see the future. I don't know what jobs are going to be created by this, but I can certainly see the jobs that are going to be eliminated. So what's happening with this data integration, that is the future. And AI is a huge part of it, because data integration used to be really complicated and expensive. So you could connect to all of these things we're going to connect to now. We're already doing it, like ELDs. You could have connected to those 10 years ago. The problem was you had to figure out a way to monetize it, because it was going to cost you $1 million of programming time in a year's worth of work. And then you had to update it and keep it updated. And it just didn't make sense to do it. You could do it. Now, AI and some other technologies make data integration simple and cheap. So the future of software, in my opinion, is just connecting a lot of data points and then also using AI to create value out of the connection of all those data points. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like that's the new thing that all my customers, brokers, are moving towards. Yes. Everybody's shifting towards tracking. And it's always been a thing, but it's been really pushed. And I think it's because the more they track, the more they can cut down on fraud. And, I used to be really against it. I used to get in fights with brokers over tracking. I'm like, look, I told you where I was. Why do you need to track my truck? And the main reason I got in fights about it is because the technology was so horrible.
Oh, right.
And they would deduct my pay if I didn't track. And I'm like, hang on, I have nothing. I didn't build that app.
Right. No, why
are you deducting my pay because your app failed?
Exactly.
And so, but with the integration of the ELD, that is more solid. It won't fail as often. And so now we can, and like I said, I'm gonna try to get ahead of that and
so give
Trucker Tools a call and get set up to where it is integrated with my ELD, because I have to give them basically the IP address. It's not an IP address. I can't remember what they call it. API address.
They need an API key. APIs.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yep.
APIs have existed as long as software has existed. And that's what I was talking about. You could have made these connections 10 years ago with an API. We have APIs in our software. We can connect. Mm-hmm. But making the APIs talk to each other was expensive. It required a lot of coding and programming. So nothing has changed. Mm-hmm. We're still going to use APIs. Now, though, the coding and the connections can be made so much faster because of AI. That's really what changed. APIs have always been around. That's how you get one software program to talk to another. It's done through APIs. They were just very labor intensive and expensive, and they're really not anymore. So we're going to see a lot of data integration. Now, here's something else to think about. Right now in freight, it is almost all focused on fraud. And that's good. We need to eliminate fraud. It is a big problem for us. It hurts us all. We got to get past that, and we will. This technology will do that. But there are plenty of other benefits to this kind of tracking. Here's one. What is the least profitable mile you drive? Or all the miles, a group of miles that are the least profitable? Empty miles, right? We make no money if we don't have freight on board. So imagine when you have a system that knows, a system as smart as AI, that knows where all the freight is and knows where all the capacity is and can match it better. We'll cut down on empty miles for all of us.
Yeah. That brings up another topic. I wonder, this dispatching service thing that's exploded lately. I get probably 2 or 3 calls a week from dispatch services that don't speak English wanting to know if I have a truck and do I need load. They get load for me. I get load.
I hate these things, by the way, just so you know. I think they're completely irrelevant. I know.
Well, they might be more irrelevant with AI. All they're doing is connecting the load board to the carrier.
Well, let's.
A good dispatcher can pay his own weight as far as
possibly.
But there's a lot that goes into dispatching other than just connecting the dots.
Well,
but a good AI system could do that probably better than a human.
You know what I used to use, and I know a lot of small carriers use. They had a good dispatcher. It was their broker. Good brokers could do this. And I've always said, build a relationship with a small broker who is willing to do that and let them dispatch you. And that can work. Now, AI makes it way more
there's a problem with that.
Well, there can be, but we don't need to talk about it because it's all changing. So let's go forward.
Right, exactly.
Because not only...
The problem is where does the dispatchers, what does the dispatcher, what is his largest goal? Is his largest goal
freight.
Moving his freight, or is his largest goal making the carrier money?
No,
so as long as those goals align,
you can serve both. Now, it's not normal or it's not common, but you know how I feel about all of this stuff. I don't want to be average. I don't want to be doing what everybody else does. That means I can't work with companies who think that way. I want to work with companies that realize if we align our goals and work together, really together, we can all become the top 3%. That's my goal. I want to be in the top 3% of everything we do. And you can't play by the normal rules to do that. And I get that. So, yeah, I understand that what 97% of the people do is what everybody keeps trying to tell me. Well, that's not the way it is. It's like this. I know it is. But I've never played in the other 97%, and I don't want to now. So here's something else, though. I'm going to take this a step further. Dispatch services were irrelevant in my world because they were absolutely not needed if you built good relationships with brokers. They are completely irrelevant with AI because AI can do what they do 100 times better and almost free. But I have been saying since 1990, maybe even 89, there's been this thought that long that technology and the internet was going to replace brokers. And it never happened. Every year, there are more brokers in the industry than there were the year before. After a big run up, then we'll see some drop off. But the overall trend by far has been an upward trajectory of more brokers. And in the beginning, way back in 89 or 90, I thought the same thing. Technology replaced travel agents. Technology eventually replaced cab companies, replaced insurance agents for the most part. Real estate agents, that dropped way off because of technology. The only reason you still have real estate agents and insurance agents is because of regulations. If you just got rid of regulations, you wouldn't have those two occupations. What the hell good is a real estate agent who all they really tend to do anymore is walk you around the house and point out the living room? Oh, really? I would have never known that was the living room. Thank you. They have almost no other purpose. With listings on the internet, I don't need them to tell me what the school district is. It's all over the internet. Everything I need to know about that property, I can know before I even go out there. And you're going to walk around and point out the bathroom? They're irrelevant. But it's regulation that keeps that industry going. Same thing with insurance agents. I don't need an insurance agent anymore.
Yeah.
I could go online and the site can tell me everything I need to know about insurance. But it's regulations that keep it around. It may be regulations that will keep freight brokers in business. But when everybody was saying I would get 3 calls a week or 10 emails a week, we need to talk to you. You need to get us on your show. You need to partner with us because we're going to be the Uber of trucking. Meaning, in their mind, they thought their technology would replace freight brokers. And I would call them and say, tell me how your software does everything that the freight broker does. Well, what do you mean? And I'd say, that's a pretty clear statement. Tell me how your software does everything a freight broker does. Well, the shippers will just be able to post their loads and the carriers will be able to find them. Well, wait a minute. There's about 30 more things that have to happen to move that freight. How does your software do that? Well, it doesn't, but we're going to be the Uber of trucking. And then they'd start telling me how many carriers they had signed up. And I said, just stop. I don't care how many carriers you have signed up. Tell me how many shippers you have signed up. Well, our team's still working that out. And I'd say, call me back when you have 100 shippers, which is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. But call me back when you have 100 shippers. Nobody ever called me back because nobody could build software that can do everything a freight broker has to do for the shipper to get the freight moved. AI might be the technology that changes that. And if freight brokers exist, in 3 years, I believe it's only going to exist because some regulation will keep them in business the way it did with real estate and insurance. And there's almost no stockbrokers
I think on my situation, in my world running flatbed, I think brokers will exist longer if there is a technology that does do away with them. Obviously, in the open deck space, there's a lot more going on, a lot more communication needs to happen. Not just does this pick up at the right time, and does it weigh enough? I mean, there's a lot of other dimensional things and securement things that go into open deck. The one coming back to
now, here's what will happen. Let me go back. Here's what will happen. The number of humans involved in moving freight is going to be cut by a factor of 10. If the brokerage still exists, and I believe it will for some of the reasons you talked about, but the day-to-day things that an agent in an office moving the freight does, 10 of those people, every 10 will be replaced by an AI, somebody using AI. So the brokerage may still exist. The number of people employed in the brokerage industry is going to get cut dramatically.
You just brought up another point that I've been meaning to talk to you about for a while. So about a month ago, I want to say, I booked a load for my driver, Jeff, and it was Circle Logistics. We've used them before. They're a mega. I call them a mega. They're kind of like a TQL.
Yeah.
I called them, and I told them which lane I was looking at, and they're like, okay, this is they explained the load to me, and they explained the pickup times, and I was like, okay, that sounds good. We can, and I was going through it. And after a while, I'm like, wait a minute, am I talking to a human? And I eventually asked it. I'm like, are you a human or AI? And it said, oh, I'm AI.
Isn't that crazy?
And I'm like, holy crap, I'm not even talking to a human.
And you didn't know it.
And then I tried to do something. I didn't know it. It had an odd way of answering questions.
Correct. Right. There are some clues.
It wasn't quite perfect.
Right.
But the voice was perfect. And I eventually, I couldn't get past a certain point. It would just start hanging up on me because there was, I can't remember what it was. It wanted delivery on Friday, and I said, no, we'll deliver on Monday.
Right.
And it's flatbed freight, so that's very easy to change. Yeah. And it's like, no, it can't calculate it because it was. And so eventually I just booked it for Friday, and then I called later and changed it to Monday. I had to call the AI 3 times to get that booked because it couldn't get what I was trying to say.
So here's something funny.
And then I called another. So all of the Circle Logistics, when you call in on a posted load, maybe not all, but a big percentage of that you call in, and brokers don't even answer the phone anymore. You talk to AI directly, and you book the load directly from AI. Yep. You might get to talk to a human once you book the load, and they call to check on things. That's about it.
Yeah.
And then coming back to highway, with what they're doing, it sounds great. Tracking your ELD, making sure there's no fraud, and it is great until it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So this has been a problem for me, and I have to have highway on speed dial because it hasn't happened in a couple of weeks, but for once a week for about a month, the system wasn't tracking right. And I would call a broker, nope, we can't use and they'd hang up on me. They wouldn't tell me why or nothing. You're no good. We don't work with you. And I'm like, what the hell? Eventually someone let out that my highway wasn't tracked.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, yes, it is. We just ran for you last week. Oh, yeah, you just ran for you last week, but now you're not good. And so I had to call highway and say, what's going on? And I was like, oh, no, everything's fine. And I'm like, well, all the brokers tell me I'm not good to work with. So what's going on? And they're like, huh. And they digged into it, and they're like, well, let me reset it. They reset it, and then I called them all back. Oh, yeah, you're good. We can work with you.
So let me give you an analogy.
That's the problem with technology. It's so great until it doesn't work, and then we're totally screwed. We can't book a single load.
And that's never going to change. Now, each new generation will start off really rough and get better. And here's an analogy. I was very early into computers. And I was very early into computers in running my business. I started writing spreadsheets back in the late 80s to run my own trucks. That's where profit gauges eventually came from. When I look back at how much time I spent not using the technology, but working on the technology. Just back then, just trying to get a printer to talk to your computer might take you 3 days sometimes. Drivers, we used to talk about drivers all the time, and I don't mean truck drivers. I
don't think that's changed, Kevin.
No, it has. Let me promise you this. Now, I will say, and this people will fight me on this, for the first 18, almost 20 years I used computers, I was a PC guy because it was business. Apple was known as the arts computer. If you were a musician, an artist, a graphic artist, a writer, you would love a Mac. But there was no business software for Macs. So I was kind of forced into PCs. The first computer I learned to use was a Mac. But then when I tried to get, business stuff for it, you just couldn't. Nobody wrote software. So I had to switch to PCs. So part of the work was PCs. The day that I switched to Macs, the time I spent working on the computer got cut by 75%. And we're fully Mac today, and they're easy. I don't ever really spend any time on computer technology. Now, what I do spend a lot of time on is audio technology to do my show. It's not, but AI is about to fix that. I'm already working on it. I've been working on it for a while. AI will solve all of the audio, video, show delivery, tech issues that I have constantly. And I have them because almost nobody does what I do. Almost nobody and people go, oh my God, there's 1 million podcasts out there. I don't do a podcast. Well, there's radio shows everywhere. Well, yeah, but not like mine. And it's not just, it just is. I do a live show. Podcasts aren't live. Podcasts are recorded and heavily edited. So if you have a technology problem, you fix it before you release the recorded version. Not only is it live to listen to while it's happening, I take live callers. And we're not just on audio on our app, we're on video on our tribe site. There's a lot going on there. There is no software on the market that can do that. None. We've been trying to write our own.
Your system is unique for sure.
It really is, and people don't understand. Because of that, I have to constantly hack together a bunch of different technology, and it's complicated enough that all it takes is what just happened this morning. One piece of software somewhere in my system did an update, and everything gets updated all the time. I have to constantly monitor updates and test them. And this weekend I didn't. My phone auto-updated because usually my phone doesn't cause any problems until it does. Like you just said, technology is great until it doesn't work. And it was great until it didn't work. So, but that always gets better. And the beauty of AI, one of the things, is AI is really good at finding bugs in software and fixing them faster than humans can. So I think we'll see improvements in a lot of these things. I don't care how big the company is.
The thing that kind of bothered me.
You've experienced this.
The fact that
no matter how big a company is,
so
they roll out software and it's always got bugs after they update it. Always. It's like nonstop.
Yeah, and the thing that bothers me is when they roll this software out, then they absolutely can't go back to the way they used to do
Correct.
it. Like, all of these brokers were brokers that I've worked with for years.
Right.
And they were completely, nope, can't use you. Sorry, bye. And they'd hang up on me. I'm hang on.
I know.
We just moved a load with you last week. We've moved, 17 loads this year. You can't just send me a rate confirmation. Nope. You got to pass the test on the thing, and your ELDs aren't tracking because the software's broken and hang up, click, next carrier,
No, you're right. These are the downsides.
It just teaches you how much relationships really don't matter when you've worked for these brokers for years and they adopt a new system and all of a sudden the system matters only.
So here's something I've been saying for years.
I wish that they would give an opportunity.
And if I could wave my magic wand, I would have made this happen a long time ago, but I feel like I'm shouting in the forest and nobody's listening. I've been saying this long before we even knew what AI was or what it was going to be, because I've been saying about technology in general that we should really work hard to use technology to enhance our relationships, but never replace them. And nobody's listening.
Yeah, and there are a few brokers that are willing to go back and RTS is one. There's a broker that I have on speed dial. I call him all the time, and they went a long time ago to a system where they deduct $100 off your rate confirmation until you track successfully, and then they add it back. And that particular broker for years was sending me rate confirmations with no tracking hold on it.
Oh yeah.
And every other broker I worked with from that brokerage would send the tracking hold. I'm like, hang on, Charles doesn't send that. Well, he's special because we knew each other before that policy existed. So, and he's like, look, I know you don't like this, because I had a major problem with that. Because when their software fails, it doesn't matter whose fault it was; they deduct money from me. And I don't think that's fair.
Well, no, it's not.
And I'm like, hang on, your freight got delivered.
Right.
Your freight got picked up on time, delivered on time. You got the best service possible, and your app failed.
Yeah. And you penalized me.
So pay your bill. It's the way I feel.
Right.
Yeah. Why that? Now, I did argue that. It took 2 days of arguing, and they eventually gave me the $100, and it wasn't worth my 2 hours on the phone with them. Right.
Here's something else to think about.
Anyway.
Here's another way to think about this. We call these revolutions with technology. We also refer to them, I do many times, as disruptions. This is, and I'll even use the phrase, this is going to be a very disruptive technology. It's going to break things. It's going to radically change the way we do things. That word disruption tells us a lot. There's going to be problems, big problems, really, really frustrating and annoying problems, little problems. It is a disruption. That's why we use this word. Here's the mindset I think you have to take if you want to be in business and be successful in business, or honestly, live in our society today. There are huge advantages to almost all of these technologies. So what you have to do is you got to kind of focus on the advantages, understand that there's going to be huge disruptions and little disruptions, and it's going to be annoying, and you're going to have to fix them or work around them, but try not to get so stuck on the problems that you waste time where you could be taking advantage of the power of this. So I understand. We all, when we talk about reviews, I was just talking about reviews. More people are much more likely to write a bad review than a good review. Just human nature. We're more likely to complain about bad service than we are to tell somebody what great service we got. It's human nature. I try to help people fight against that nature. You will get so bogged down in the problems because there's going to be lots of them. When I say don't focus on them, people are like, well, you don't understand. There are problems. I understand completely. And I'm trying to help you realize that if you spend 90% of your time focused on the problems, you're missing all the power. You're only getting the downsides every time. Fix the problems as quick as you can. Understand that they're going to keep happening. Focus on where you can get the benefit. Just a mindset is all it is.
It's almost kind of like the disrupted. If you think about all the disruptions that COVID caused, it also caused a boom in the freight market.
Good point.
And that boom was more easily capitalized by small carriers. So when there's disruptions going on, I think small carriers are, like myself, are quicker to make moves, and it's easier for us to change our entire operation to fit the new market. So, and I don't know that to be the case in this particular. But I imagine some of the mega fleets are struggling to make this change, where small fleets like mine, it's pretty easy for me to make that change.
You just hit the point.
I've been kind of embracing it as, I've been kind of trying to embrace that as, look, this is the new way forward. If I want to run a successful, trucking company as a small company, I can't make the brokers come online with my system. I got to come online with theirs.
Well, you just brought up the major point. And you are thinking about it correctly. All technology, when used properly, always benefits the smaller players. Always. This is a much, much bigger struggle for bigger entities across the board, bigger carriers, bigger brokers. Mm-hmm. Their systems don't change easily. They invest a gazillion dollars into systems that'll become obsolete because of AI. And now they have to try to change. It's like trying to turn around a battleship or, trying to turn around a speedboat. You're the speedboat. The technology always benefits the smaller person who learns how to use it. You become as powerful as a big carrier if you learn how to use this right.
Yeah. One thing I just thought of that I might mention to people that are scared of the highway system, and it seems like every week we have another broker that we've worked with for years that switches to highway, and now we've got to re-onboard with them because every time they switch their onboarding platform, we have to re-onboard with them or fill out a new carrier packet. So I remember one guy calling in, the guy that kind of started this thing. I was filling out highway packets before I knew it was going to be a problem, and someone called in that was running a paper log truck and was saying the same thing, that basically all his brokers are switching and he now can't work with them. I think, I could be wrong about this, the way the technology works, but I think if you run a truck that's capable of having an ELD on it, like a not a mechanical,
right?
If it's an electronic engine, you could order an ELD, get it plugged in, get it working, get it tracking with the software, and then just turn it off or just unplug it and use your paper log the same as you always did until you work with a broker that needs it to be tracked. I believe that would work. You'd have to. It might cause problems with the broker.
You might be right.
Be legal because if your truck is exempt.
I think you're probably right, and I like the way you're thinking. How do we make this work, for us? Here's something else, and I haven't put a lot of time or energy into this because honestly, with everything going on, I'm not going to put a lot of time and energy into a small part of the market, even mechanical engines. Let's say you've got a fully mechanical engine. Well, there are still GPS units. There's your phone. I know it doesn't meet ELD requirements because it can't tell us what the truck is doing, but that's a government requirement. I believe there's probably a solution, even with a mechanical engine, of getting involved in these systems.
Yeah, I think you're right. My point is if you've got an older guy with a 1998, Peterbilt that doesn't want to give. What is it? The guy that calls in, Frank? Is it Frank or Fred? Fred calls in. He's got a 94.
Oh, Fred. Yeah, he's got an older truck.
And so those guys that just love the paper log, I get why they love it. I still have a paper log truck. Jeff's driving it. We run E-log on it because of that reason, but it is a paper log glider, and. I love it because it gives you so much freedom throughout the day. You can stop wherever you want and just take your time, and and not ever stress about traffic, not ever stress about anything. And that's a big problem, actually. A totally different topic, but the whole E-log thing has made so much stress in our industry.
Well, you probably
it is necessary.
You must not have heard when I was talking with Tracy from Truck Parking Club, because some places you were hearing me, some places you weren't. You were in and out of the truck. And I've talked about this before. When I drove, and I have no problem admitting this, I ignored hours of service completely. Didn't even think about them. Only filled out my logbook usually once a week. And I drove based on what should be common sense. We all know this as drivers. And I always use this example. I could be home all weekend, relaxing, getting 2 or 3 nights of good sleep, It was not uncommon for me to leave out early Monday morning to get to the East Coast, and 2 hours in, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I was legal, totally legal. I wasn't safe, and I would just pull over and sleep until I was safe. Then there were other days where I could be on hour 16, totally not legal, but completely safe. And I knew in my own mind and body I was safe to keep driving. So I ignored hours of service. I drove when I was alert and safe. I slept when I was tired and not safe. And then I made up the logbook afterwards. I have been an advocate,
and if we could have
that there should be no hours of service.
If we could, if all the drivers were responsible, like most of the people in the tribe, then that would work wonderful. The problem is that, unfortunately, I used to be a big advocate of just take hours of service away, let trucker drivers sleep when they want to sleep, and let them drive when they want to drive. That would be the safest, and there would be less parking problems too. But unfortunately, I think we have to have a regulation there because, unfortunately, truck drivers have proved that they're not responsible.
I have a potential solution to that.
So,
a middle ground where you allow, and maybe it's your first year, you have to be on an e-log, not a paper log. You have to be on an e-log your first year. After your first year, you're given a probationary period where you're allowed to run without hours of service, and you're monitored heavily. Any violation of, and there's not a violation because we're not going to have rules. Anything that starts to make you look unsafe, certainly an accident, you're done. You go back to e-logs, or you just lose your CDL. And this is a thing in our whole country, not just this. I am tired of over-regulating everybody because the danger some groups pose. And that's what we do across the board. It is insane to me. I'm just going to pick something that I'm familiar with. It's insane to me that I'm not allowed to grow food and cook food and just sell it directly to people. I can't do that. I have to have the FDA come in and inspect my facilities and tell me that I'm safe. And that's not doing any good because food companies kill people every single day. With the FDA, we still have food poisoning, and it's not fixing the system. It's strangling the system. I should be allowed to raise a cow, butcher the cow, and sell it to my neighbors if I want. But I can't. I can't even milk my cow and sell the milk to my neighbors. Well, those kind of regulations drive me crazy. We build our system to serve the lowest common denominator. And I think there are ways to fix that, but I don't know if we ever will. And that's what we're doing in trucking. We control as much as we can so we can control the lowest common denominator. The worst driver on the road, the whole system is built to protect us against him. Well, just create a system where they never get to drive a truck in the first place.
So the thing that drives me crazy around the log hours of service situation is livestock haulers, including honeybees on a flatbed, are ELD exempt.
There should be no exemptions.
Now, here's the funny thing about it. Well, I agree, but here's the weird thing. They didn't make you hours of service exempt. They made you ELD exempt.
Right, that's ignorant.
Now, why in the world would they do that?
Because they know you can cheat, and they're okay with it.
Exactly.
Right. So that's what I mean. I hate that system.
Oh, we know that the cows are going to die if you have to stop in the middle of this trip or whatever, or they're going to run out of water and you have to rewater them, or
whatever it is. Right.
There is a reason why you have to make a trip at whatever it is, but in one sitting you can't take a 10-hour break.
Right.
So rather than just make you exempt from the hours of service, they make you exempt from the e-log so you can cheat.
And it's
but then if you cheat and you get caught, guess what you end up in? You end up in jail. Hang on.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to make it exempt legally.
Correct. And here's my point, though.
Stupid
Here's my point. Because I'll take that idea one step further. If hours of service are required so a human being doesn't die, then there should never be an exemption. You're telling me that somehow the delivery of these honeybees is more important than a human life because you're willing to exempt something that you tell me is required to keep people from dying.
Mm-hmm.
There should be no exemptions.
Now,
if this is that important, if this keeps people alive, then there should be no exemptions ever.
Right. It's only important when it's a politician looking to get reelected.
Right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
The funny thing about the exemption, so like when you have a tornado and there's an exemption on a certain thing, like during
water.
COVID, there was an exemption for food. So
right.
all of your reefers, basically most reefer loads were exempt, but they didn't make them exempt from the ELDs.
Just hours of
service. That time they made them exempt from hours of service.
Sometimes they do. Here's another one.
Which is the correct way to do it. If you're going to...
Well, but again, I'll go further and say if you can exempt them, you are either saying propane and fuel oil deliveries. When we get a bad winter storm, they exempt them constantly. I see it all the time. You're saying we're willing to kill people to get propane delivered.
Right. It's totally acceptable.
Right. Well, then if it's acceptable, we can exempt it, then let's just get rid of the system.
What I'd like to see is someone put some math behind it and see how many more accidents happen on those people that are using the exemption during those big events.
Here's my guess.
COVID for like 3 years.
Here's my guess. That there are no more accidents that you can find.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any more accidents because here's what happens when you're exempt from hours of service. You drive when you want to drive, and you're way more flexible to make deliveries on time, and you're not stressed.
Right.
When you have to take 10 hours off, and you have, say you have exactly enough time to take 10 hours off, log back in, and make your delivery. And then you run into traffic in Atlanta.
Let's go back to 2018. No, you're exactly.
Wouldn't it be easier just to
You are exactly right. Let's go back to 2018. I was a proponent of electronic logs. Do you know why? Because I'm totally against hours of service. And
because you're an idiot, Kevin.
Of course. That's right. As long as we allow paper logs where people can cheat, then the system will never be questioned. Now that we've forced people into electronic logs and it highlights all the stupid problems with our hours of service. So I said, if you're going to keep the hours of service, then bring on the ELDs and maybe we'll finally get something changed.
Yeah, just to kind of come back on that, the hours of service are here to stay, just like the tracking of your e-log and the highway onboarding and everything else. We just have to get used to it. But it's fun for us to talk about,
sure,
what could we do if we just got rid of them? But they are here to stay. The other thing, so cheating on your paper log is not really anymore, doesn't work anyway. So because everything is tracked electronically, your fuel ups are tracked electronically.
Oh, you're right.
Tracked electronically when you drive through a port.
Yeah.
And all the states now talk to each other. So it used to be you could drive through a weigh station on one state and they didn't know from the other state when you drove through. Not the case anymore. They have a timestamp when you drove through every port.
Hey, Cole.
Now, if you don't have the pre-pass, they may not unless someone manually does it. But either way, they can figure that out.
Let me tell you how. Let me tell you how powerful that's going to be. All you have to do now, and it won't be hard or expensive, is put AI on that. AI will spot the violation in minutes. A human being will never have to look at any of this and go, hey, wait a minute. He logged this, but his fuel receipt, his toll receipt, all those other data points. Traffic cameras are everywhere now. So all this is going to take is an AI system that will flag the violation within minutes of it happening. And honestly, let's get put on our stainless steel helmets. Then the system will shut down your truck electronically.
Yeah, which is the big thing they're fighting against because that's a big hacker problem.
I know.
When that ability exists. In my truck, it's a 2020 and it has all the electronic stuff, but I could just unplug the ELD.
Correct.
I just reach down and unplug the damn thing, and then I can drive all I wanted to, because it's a dash link version of the ELDs. But a lot of the megas have it tied into the.
But here's something else. Government, because this is all going to be government if it happens. Government can just mandate that the manufacturers put a system that can't be unplugged. There are GPS trackers. They've been around forever.
Right.
That somebody puts a GPS tracker in a vehicle. Used car lots use them. Been using them for years. The people who buy the used car don't realize it has a GPS tracker in it. You don't pay your bill.
Oh.
And they know exactly where your car is, and they come and take it back. Government could do the same thing.
Yeah, so I had forgotten about that. So my 2020, it was built in 2019, so it was a 6-year-old truck.
Yeah.
It has a GPS onboard diagnostic system. I can call any Kenworth dealer.
Correct.
Give them the last 8 of the VIN, and they can look up the VIN number, and they can tell me what the engine code said.
Yeah.
Or they can tell me exactly where it's pinged at.
Telematics.
Now, I believe it's read-only, but what if it wasn't read-only? What if they could just fry my ECM from anywhere?
Well, wait a minute. We use that technology in a good way with Pittsburgh Power. We call it remote tuning. That is not read-only.
Well, but that's a little different, because it's plugged into a laptop. I can be driving down the road and call Kenworth and be like, hey, I got an engine light on. What's going on?
No, what I'm trying to explain to you is it's not read-only. That laptop we plug into voluntarily could be mandated by the government to be on every vehicle.
Oh, I see your point.
Yeah. The technology already exists, and it's existed for a very long time to control a vehicle, read, write, all of it. And if the government mandates it, then connects AI to all these data points, and now they can claim for safety. When you violate hours of service, you will be shut down electronically.
Well, and the problem with that I have heard that one of the somebody in the Trump administration has kind of brought that up, and they're fighting against that, because I think it was someone in Texas. I don't remember, but and that was their point. They're like, we don't want our trucks to be linked anywhere where some foreign bad actor could hack all of our trucks at once and shut everybody down and shut our whole grid down. And that is a big problem, I think, that we probably should look at.
I agree with you, but we should have looked at this a long, long time ago with our electric grid. But we didn't.
Good point. Yeah.
It's much, much more destructive and easier to shut down our electric grid than it is to target individual trucks. Now, you're right. If you interconnect them in a big system and you could shut them down all at the time, that would be devastating, and we need to think about that. But we've already let the horse out of the barn, because the single most important thing we need is our electric grid, and that can be shut down. We know it can be shut down. We know the Chinese are in our system, the Koreans, the Iranians, they're all in our system. We know they can do it.
I'm going to need to double up on that.
In fact,
steel hat.
Yeah, I know. In fact, I haven't been reading a lot of news, but this morning I just started trying to at least stay up on the headlines. I guess Europe, Spain, and Portugal have huge power outages nationwide, and nobody knows why. And they're thinking it was a cyber attack. Cole?
Hey, Kevin, I might be losing you here.
Yeah.
All right. I got one bar, so if I lose you, just continue on. But
got it. Did you hear what I said about Portugal and Spain?
Yeah. You broke up a little bit, but I got most of it.
Yeah. As far as I could tell this morning, nobody knows exactly why the power went out nationwide, but it could have been a cyber attack. And we know Russia has done it to other countries. We know it's possible. So, and once you shut down the grid, the trucks aren't moving either. There's no fuel. There's no financial transactions. Everything comes to a screeching halt. And we've done almost nothing to protect our grid. All right. I think I am losing you, Cole. So great stuff. Call me more often. It's always a good conversation. Let's go to Michigan. Michael, welcome.
Hey, Kevin.
What's on your mind today?
With your exemption topic, can I add to that?
Sure.
So on the East Coast, they do a lot of farm fish, as we all know. And fish sticks are that exemption list.
Fish sticks?
Yes. Frozen fish sticks.
Why? They're frozen.
Probably because of the mass produce that are coming out of the ocean and need to get across the East Coast states.
So now fish sticks are more important than human lives.
The main reason why I called is I have a movie I would like to mail to you and have you watch it.
Okay.
But if I have to describe it, that's okay too.
Describe it, and then I don't watch a lot of movies. The stuff I watch tends to be more kind of true documentary kind of stuff. So if it's something like that, I might be interested.
This isn't that, but it kind of relates to AI and what's going on. It's a 26-year-old movie. I watched it when I was much younger on the Sci-Fi Channel.
What's the name of it?
So I really don't want to give it out.
Got it. Okay.
Unless if I have to, because the name will definitely grab your attention.
Well, go ahead and explain it to me.
The movie that would be kind of funny to... What's that?
Can you explain it to me then, the storyline?
Yes, I will. It all starts with a ship in a hurricane, and it's a Russian ship out in space. They had a Russian station, and this virus transmit to the space station, and then as they're communicating, the ship and the space station, the virus transmits to the ship.
Are we talking a computer or technology virus or a human virus? Are you on a speakerphone?
Virus. Are you on a speakerphone? I am. Can you hear me well or no?
No, I can hear you fine, but I'm getting a huge echo of my own voice coming back to me.
Okay. I got you off speaker now.
Okay. That's much better. So it's a human virus?
No, it's a...
computer virus. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a technology virus. And it is aware it wants to survive.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the big, scary AI issue that, in essence, I'm avoiding. Because I'm not avoiding it because I don't think it can happen. I'm avoiding it because I believe it could happen. It could be horrendous, and there's not a single thing I can do to stop it.
Yes. And I thought of this movie once AI kind of came out and Mr. Musk was saying we need to control it. And it's like I watched a video way back in the day, and I was able to figure it out and find it, and I bought it. And yeah, it's kind of nice to relate from back then, people's ideas to reality today.
Yeah. I have said many, many times, and I'll keep saying it, if it were up to me, I would make AI disappear and never, ever come back. I don't think that ultimately it's going to be good for us. But I also don't believe that social media was good for us. If I could make social media disappear, I would make it disappear too.
Yes.
I as much as I embrace technology, if I could make it go away, much of it I would make go away. But I can't. And I can't make AI less dangerous. No matter how much I talk about it, it wouldn't matter if I devoted my entire life to saying I'm going to run for Congress. It doesn't matter how much effort I put into it. I'm never going to change the course of what AI could potentially do to us. I can't change the downsides. All I can do is try to educate myself on at least using it for whatever good I can and warning people about the downsides that maybe we could at least avoid. Understanding it is the only way I know to try to minimize some of the downsides and maximize the upsides. But I can't change any of this.
Yes. So, question for you. Have you watched a movie for this year?
I don't believe I have. I don't think I've watched a movie this year, which isn't unusual. It's very possible that I didn't watch a movie. No, I must have watched one or two, but I didn't like any of them, so none of them stuck out.
I'll give the name out for all the listeners, and if you change your mind, I think you would enjoy most of it, if not all of it. It is named Virus. It came out in 1999. There's some big names as actors, which they're bigger now than they were back then.
Okay.
It was on Sci-Fi Channel, so it's not the greatest, but
yeah,
it's an interesting movie.
I may. John in the chat room just mentioned The Perfect Storm. Interestingly enough, I'm assuming we're talking about the same movie, the movie that was pretty popular named The Perfect Storm. I did watch that one, and I really liked that one.
Good storyline.
Yeah, that one and it's a story that could absolutely be true about, and maybe it was, I don't even remember. It may have been. That's the kind of stuff I like. I like more realistic. Now, the sci-fi thing I could potentially get into, understanding that could become realistic, maybe already is here. I don't like crazy action movies where, 37 people get killed in the first, 15 minutes by one guy who's, that kind of stuff just doesn't interest me. The bigger than life, and I know people do that because that's kind of a break from reality. It's an escape. That just doesn't appeal to me. I love documentaries. I love really well done movies that follow more real life kind of than more outrageous kind of stuff. So a movie like The Perfect Storm, there was nothing in that movie that couldn't have happened in real life. And like I said, maybe it did.
All right. This movie, it does have some gore, very light, but it's still stitches
again,
and blood,
if I realize people get beheaded in the real world, that's pretty gory. Gore doesn't bother me.
Yes.
It's the unrealistic stuff we see in movies. And I get it. Somebody's going to call me and go, well, you're an idiot. That's the point of movies. I understand that that's the point of a lot of movies, so people can experience something that doesn't happen in real life. That just doesn't appeal to me. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. And I almost envy people who can be that entertained by TVs and movies because now they're everywhere. I am so picky about that kind of stuff that I don't care if you give me 5,000 channels, which we have now. Most of the time, I still can't find much to watch on TV or YouTube that I really enjoy.
Yep. It's all about entertainment. I know where you're coming from, but I know a lot of people recommended WALL-E, and it's something that's out of our control. We'll never see that in our lifetime, and I understand why you haven't watched it.
Yeah, I hate to spend. That's even worse. So there's that idea of, well, Kevin, just relax and escape and enjoy it. If I could, I would. I like enjoying things. It's not like I'm just some Scrooge that wants to be unhappy. That's not it at all. If that made me happy or I enjoyed it, I would do it. That's why I tend to like books better. I can even read books that are kind of outrageous. I don't know why. I don't know what the difference is. One of my favorite authors is Stephen King. Most of Stephen King's books are never, ever going to come true. They're supernatural. That's what, but for some reason, I like it in books. I don't necessarily like it in movies. I think it's because I like depth. I like detail. And in a movie, 90 minutes, it's just surface stuff. In a book with, 35 hours of reading, that's the detail, the depth that I want to get to. So that's probably the difference more than just is it real or unreal. If I'm going to watch a video, I'd almost always prefer that it's something about real life or something that could happen. And then there's just the fact that I think most of what they crank out in movies and TV today is just garbage. I mean, it's just not well done. It's just garbage. It's just awful. And it works because the vast majority of people love it. I get that. I don't watch sports either. I'm wildly competitive. I talk about it all the time. There is not a single sport I watch on TV and haven't in my adult life. I compete in sports. I've coached sports. I don't like watching them. It just doesn't appeal to me.
All right.
I must be the odd one. I
understand about the movies, that's for sure.
Yeah, I must be the odd one, but that's okay.
What about like in live football or soccer, like being at the stadium?
No.
You've done that?
Doesn't appeal to me at all. Okay. In fact, it's worse because of all the hassle and time involved. You know, I gotta get in my car. I gotta spend all this time driving. I gotta go park. I gotta fight crowds, which I absolutely hate. And all I'm doing is watching what I could have watched on TV. So the live experience. Now, there are times when I was coaching that I could certainly be like when I coached wrestling, I watched a lot of wrestling, but I did it to make myself a better coach. I didn't do it for entertainment. When I coached soccer, and I never played soccer, so that was a huge challenge for me, I watched a lot of soccer, but it was so I could learn to be a better coach. I wasn't doing it for entertainment.
Yes. You benefit from it. Yes.
Correct. Right. I don't know. Maybe and it's not that I don't like to be entertained. I just don't find a lot of things entertaining.
I think you could benefit a little bit from this movie.
Probably.
But that's my opinion.
Yeah, probably just because that story is happening now.
Yeah, and this is transmitted ASAP, so it's a movie. It starts slow, but as they all go, they end. All right, Kevin.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for the call. All right, let's. I've got one more call on the line, and probably going to wrap this up for the day. So I should probably turn off the phones. And Mark, are we neighbors?
Hey. Well, we're kind of. Currently about to depart Long Beach, Washington.
Oh, I know.
North, and
I know exactly where you are.
We watched the sunset last night. It was really cold and windy, and I must say that Oregon does have some nice beaches. Visited Indian Beach yesterday. My daughter's like, her thing was the movie Twilight, so she wanted to go there. We Silo Inn, had lunch yesterday in Portland. We came back over and went to Indian Beach. And then the day before, so we got up there Saturday morning, and then we, I went and got some water, and I'm sitting there at Safeway, and I'm like, you just want to go to Tillamook? We didn't have a hotel yet. Yeah, let's go out there. So go to Tillamook, go to the creamery out there, and went through the mountains on Highway 6. And it's like, man, I'm glad I don't have to drive this every day in the truck. And,
I know. Yeah.
And then we were like talking to went to a little restaurant across the street there and has a clam chowder and a crab cake. And I asked, I said, where are you from? She's like, Rockaway Beach. And we went back and I said, let's go to Rockaway Beach. So we rode down to Rockaway Beach and looked at the water and all there. And like I said, Oregon's got some I like Oregon's beaches and a lot to do with it, a lot better than California. So
they are.
But we're heading up to see.
For anybody who's experienced, Oregon and Washington beaches would be closer to New England style beaches than California.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Because she's out there starting the Toyota, and my headphone, I had to take it back off the vehicle out there.
Yeah, I've got you. So all the places you've mentioned, I've been to Rockaway Beach, Long Beach. Lisa and I spent a week up there last year, the year before. One of the few vacations we've taken in a while. So Astoria.
It's nice around here.
Yeah, I love it up there.
Yeah, it's nice around here. It's like the beaches are really long. Well, it's a long beach, but it's long. It's also far out. I mean, the people were parked out there. They were built campfires, and out there. And
most of that,
we walked down to the water, and
most of that island, because it's really kind of an island. Most of that island, the whole time you're on the beach, you can't see houses or buildings or hotels. They have really strict restrictions on how close you can build to the beach. And there's usually a very large berm that's maybe a couple hundred yards off the shore. So you end up with this huge beach and you don't see anything commercial or housing or anything. I love that part of it.
No, it's remote. It's people are always like, oh, the best beaches are on the Gulf Coast, because they are nice. But this into some of these beaches around here, and they're more artistic, and they're more. Like I told my daughter, I said they have more character than some of the other beaches back in the South and all like that.
Now here's what they don't have. Because we could talk all day about that. I love the beaches in Oregon and Washington. Here's what they don't have. You don't have the Gulf Coast or the Florida experience of, not very often, of laying on the beach in the sun and going swimming. Because that is really only kind of comfortable maybe 2 or 3 months out of the year. The water right now is freezing cold. The temperature in August on the beach can sometimes not get above the 50s or 60s out there in August. So then there are days where it's going to be 90 and you do want to go in the water, but the water's going to be cold. And there are many days all summer long where you're not going to get to 70 out there and it's going to be windy and cold.
Yeah, it's definitely looked and brought long sleeve and pretty much winter clothing that I normally wear back south here. I mean, I'm in shorts today, but I have a long sleeve shirt on. I put a long sleeve shirt on yesterday. I brought the hoodie and sock hat and all that. I was standing on the beach last night, and the wind was howling at probably 25 miles an hour out of the north. And you could see the spray blowing off the water. Yeah. And watch the sun go down. And it's like, I mean, it was a beautiful sunset. I posted the pictures on X, and it was unobstructed, like a Half Moon Bay 2 years ago, where it was absolutely freezing there too. Right. We didn't have our proper clothing. She didn't give a damn about the sunset. She didn't go out at all. And I went and watched it and sat in the car most of the time, but you couldn't even really see it because it's so foggy around there. It's just a different type of experience. And then, you know what I love about that? We stayed in here.
Here's the experience that, again, it's not the Florida suntan, warm water, lots of sun. It's not that experience at all. The experience I look forward to out on those beaches is building a campfire and bundling up and enjoying the beauty of it and watching the sunset, but it's a whole different experience.
Yeah, it's entirely different. The one thing about up here in Long Beach is the hotels are very reasonable for the Pacific Coast. I mean, it's probably as reasonable as I've ever seen. I mean, Half Moon Bay, we stayed in what was just above a dump for almost $300. Right. And here, this hotel right here has been clearly redone. It's really nice. Got it off of the southwestbooking.com, whatever, airline site or whatever, to get points. And it was $120 by the time they threw the tax on it. It was $120. It's just really nice. I mean, it's I stayed at the Radisson at the airport the night before, and it was about, of course they hit me up for parking. I think everything in Portland they charge for parking. So, it was that was $120, but then they tacked on a parking. They tacked on a parking fee with their own lot. And and everything downtown was like parking was $50 or $60 on top of a decent hotel. So I said, well, we'll just stay at the airport, So we stayed there, and I don't know where we'll stay tonight, but I'll try to get by and see you on Friday. I'll be in contact some way either through X. I got a phone number for you that you never answer, or you had me call you on one time that Angie said, well, maybe he'll read his text, maybe he won't. So I said, yeah, I know. So We'll probably shoot you some information on Thursday on there.
Sure.
A couple of items I want to touch on that you're on this morning, but one in particular I want to talk about here that involves a lot of things that's been discussed on this show by a lot of different people, a lot of people on X, and that's a freight rate. So I've got this friend. He's got his own authority. He hauls cars. And he's been known to like hate on brokers and feel bad about things and get depressed and use the same excuses that all these people use. So the opportunity came up for him with a broker, and he's been actually hauling for some of my customers I use, and he's had some pretty good experiences. He's got to learn to be more aggressive. But so he had this opportunity. They called in because he talked to these people before, and they said, hey, we have all these cars from Blue Springs, Mississippi to move to Kansas City. They said, well, name us a price that you can do it for. We'll give you 7 loads. They need to be out by today, which they're not. And it's so 7 loads. It's a round trip, depending on how you go from Blue Springs, Tupelo to Kansas City, is either 1,100 or 1,200 miles. So when he told me what he was doing or whatever last Saturday morning, a week ago, I was like, I ran the numbers. I'm standing there doing my pre-trip. I just ran the numbers on my phone. I said, and he told me, I said, yeah, they gave me $20,000. I thought that was a good price. I need the money and all like that. I said, did you run the numbers on that? No. I said, maybe you should run the numbers.
Yeah.
And so when you run the numbers, it was like, it might have been $260 a mile, it might have been less. I don't even really remember the numbers, but it was like something I would run for. I'd tell him, I have more money. And he told another friend after talking and all, well, I was scared that here's the deal about being in business for yourself and naming a price of what you think you're worth. You might not get it, but he wanted to get the business because he saw the big number, but he didn't run his numbers. At the end of the road, he saw this big number, $20,000.
Right.
And so he told them an amount that he liked, but he didn't run the numbers. But when you run the numbers, he's hauling what he would consider cheap freight.
Correct.
So, but he didn't run the numbers. But see, isn't it ironic? Isn't it ironic? Yeah, a lot of lessons. But go ahead.
2 big ones. One is we're in a more complicated business than most, and you need to do those kind of calculations to know what the reality is of what you're working for. That's one lesson, and if you don't do the numbers, you end up with exactly what you described. Somebody who claims to have this magical number that they won't work for less, but then ultimately works for less because they don't either run the numbers or they don't know how. That's one lesson. The other lesson we have to realize in a free market is we all get to set our own value, what we think our time and experience and knowledge and labor is worth. The market does not have to pay that. And we have to understand that. Now, you can do a couple things. You can either adjust your price to what the market is, or you can find or create another market. But you can't demand the market pay what you think your time and labor is worth. It doesn't matter what you think it's worth. It only matters what the market believes it's worth.
Well, and not only that, so there was 7 round trips from there to Kansas City. So that's it. 6 trips. So 3 round trips is all you can do legally in a week because of the hours. I mean, You're talking, 550 to 600 miles a day. I mean, and then you'll have to do a 34-hour break. Well, he didn't even take that into account. And I told him, I said, one day last week, I said, did you call those people and let them know you're not going to get all of those loads done? Well, why not? I said, well, number one, the math says so. He says, well, you say so. I said, no, the math does. The math says so. It's not mathematically possible to do all of this work in the hours giving. It would take two work weeks and another trip, and it's like, it didn't even occur to him to do this. And I'm telling you, these people that sit there and demand that they be paid a certain amount of money for a certain, whatever they're going to do. And when they give the opportunity to name their price, why do they drop the ball and leave the ball before you leave? It's like in golf. You don't even shoot the ball past the hole.
Right.
You don't even get to you cut yourself short. And everybody thinks they're worth a certain amount until it's time to name that amount. And then they look at the big number and then they get this like, well, I might not get it, so I better cut. They find out a lesson, and maybe they get it, and maybe they don't, of what they're worth. I mean, I would have gone in there, if this would have been me, and they'd call me, the first thing I'd do is run the numbers, and I'd say, I can do it for this, and this is the time frame. We can't do it. Well, how many will you give me? Okay, then I'll do a week of them. I'll do 3 of them. That's what I would have done. And if they didn't want me to do that, I'd be like, thank you, have a nice day. But you have to know what you're worth in order to be able to, and you have to know what you're doing. And it's not complicated. It's just math. It's just you look it up and you divide it out. And you could do it in 30 seconds. But it's like, I find it ironic that, and I guarantee you, all those people on X that scream the loudest, and all the communists on there, and they don't understand simple mathematics when it comes to running a business and knowing what you're worth. It's like you just have to know that. And I just find that, I mean, it's like this is the most basic concept of what we do out there. So
there are too many people who want to own a business but act and work like an employee.
Yeah.
They don't want the responsibility. They don't want the risk. They don't want to be told this is really difficult and you're going to have to take time to learn things like numbers and profit and margins and negotiation. And that's what it takes to run a successful business. They don't want that part, but they want the rewards. They want to work when they want to work. They want to get paid more. And that's why they're so frustrated and angry. And that's why they're always screaming, complaining, and then trying to form groups to somehow fight back.
Yeah, but they don't understand the basic, first of all, you have to, I mean, you know my story. I came from the bottom up. I mean, you can't get much lower than how I came up. And then it was like, I kept having to like, okay, I've got to build relationships, and I got to, and the more, I mean, it took me 8 years to figure this out, or 7, 8 years. And it was like, I knew what I needed to do, but getting there, it was like I had to change everything until I could finally.
It's hard work.
And then to start to build the relationships, and then actually building the relationships was really easy. It's just
Mark,
proving myself and telling them.
I can correlate this with my last conversation. This is probably why I don't spend a lot of time or see a lot of value in entertainment. It's not that I don't want to break from all this stuff, but I like working. I really, really derive enjoyment from doing what I do in my business. And in my time off, I don't want to stare at a screen. I don't find that enjoyable. What I find enjoyable, if I'm not going to be working on this business, is to be outside with my hands in the dirt in the sunshine. So when you combine those two things, I don't have time left for what most people consider entertainment. And if you derive enjoyment from those things, like I said, sometimes I envy people who do, because I just don't. I mean, if I enjoyed those things, if I enjoyed watching movies, I know people who can blow through 10 movies, derive so much joy from them, and I watch those movies, and not only do I not get joy, I'm angry. Like, this is not entertaining to me. And it's not to say that one is good or bad, but if you are going to be in business, you probably need to enjoy hard work, and I do. I mean, that's where I get my enjoyment from, is hard work, because business is just hard work, or what most people consider work.
Yeah, and let me say one thing about the ELD and the hours of service. I don't have a problem with it doing what I do. And I have to say some people do or they don't. The problem I run into, and we discussed this at NASTIC, and it's something that when I get back, I swear to God I'm going to implement, is limiting my days to when the end of the night gets here between 10 and midnight is stop and go to bed. because when you sleep and you work, and this past week was a prime example because they pile work on me. And I kind of had a discussion with one of my customers. I'm like, normally I would probably, and he goes, well, you don't need to do all of that. You don't need to do what you're doing. And I said, well, I need to finish because I got a trip at the end of the week. You gave me this work. You expect quality, but I'm going to start trying to sleep between midnight and 6 a.m. no matter what,
right?
Because the amount of days it takes when you work to 1, 2, or you're up to 3, because sometimes you work to 1:30 in the morning and you can't sleep for a little bit. And then the sun starts coming up and peeking through the curtains and you're awake. And it's like you get exhausted, you get worn out. It's not healthy. And people think they need to work 24 hours a day, and it is not good for you. And I'm here to tell you, you can make it out there on an ELD. You know what? It helps you manage your time more because it's like if you cut out the bullshit, get your work done during the day, sleep when the sun goes down or at a certain point at night, and get those circadian rhythm hours in, or else at the end of the day, it's not even going to be worth it because you're going to end up getting sick. You're going to lose your health. And I mean, I've gained a little weight because it's difficult to do timed eating. I've got to be more mindful of my time for rest. I think that's one of the most important things we do, but I think that it's the most overlooked in this industry. And people have had for years had the feeling that they've had to work 24 hours a day. This same guy that couldn't bid a proper contract will sit there and tell you why an ELD is bad and he needs to be able to work. I said, you say that until you work. Now he's on this little job right here. His rest is all over the place. He's all messed up. His circadian rhythm's all screwed up. He's not sleeping properly. And he's finding out how important it is. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But how important rest and time management is to get things done. You have to take advantage of these things, but you have to get your rest. And if you don't get your rest, your health will suffer for it. And I'm mindful of that. And when I get back off this trip, that is one thing I'm going to focus on all summer long. I mean, I plan on working all summer, but it's like, okay, this is my work day and this is when I work and this is when I stop. My customer's not going away. They're happy with what I do. So it's not like I don't have to really prove anything, but I have to prove to myself that I can sit there and manage my time in such a way that I get sleep when I'm supposed to and get up and be more restful because everything else is better.
And I need to do that more. I'm bad at that. In fact, I realized something on this trip I've talked a lot about in the last several months that I've fixed my sleep. I can sleep whenever I want. I can easily get by on 4 hours of sleep for 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 days in a row, and I'm really productive. Then I need a nap on, maybe the 3rd or 4th day, and then I can do it again. And I always said the reason I get up at 4 and start working is because I wake up and I can't go back to sleep and I feel refreshed and I can work, so I do. Well, on the road trip, it wasn't always convenient to get up and work. A lot of nights we just stayed in the van. If we had a room or sometimes we get an Airbnb, then I could get up and work like I normally do. One, I needed to get away from work because I've been working so hard this year. And 2, it wasn't always convenient if we were staying in the van for me to get up at 4 in the morning and then find a place in the van to work. And because I couldn't work or didn't really want to, when I wake up at 4, I can easily go back to sleep. I kept saying, well, I'm up. I might as well just get up and start working. But if I don't get up and start working and I just relax, I go back to sleep until 6:30 or 7, like a normal human being. So I can do it. But a lot of days I choose not to because when I wake up at 4, I also tend to wake up with an idea or a thought, and I just want to get started on it. And I do. But now I know that I should take a couple days out of every week and just go back to sleep. It's better for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've did that this morning. I did that yesterday. I woke up and I laid there, and then I finally just forced myself to go back to sleep, and I was better for it. I mean, when we flew out Saturday morning, I got to bed at later than I expected, 10:30, trying to put things together. We had to get up at 3. We had a 5:20 flight. We had to get to Hobby. The weather was bad the day before, so the airport was full Saturday morning at 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Pretty much we ran in there and ran on the plane, and I slept a little on the flight here and there or whatever, but my butt was kicked. And then it was like, between that and the last week that but trying to, when I got back from Pittsburgh Power, I got back a week ago from Saturday night into the Houston area at midnight. Well, Sunday, my customer's like, I got you a load. Okay, so I have to go deliver that load. Well, I couldn't clear 34-hour break until 10 a.m. Well, I ended up having to go from the southwest side all the way to Conroe, all the way to the southwest side, all the way to Baton Rouge, get to Baton Rouge to the dealer, slept at the dealer, 1:30 in the morning, did an 8-hour break. 2 hours later, and I go all the way. I already had a load Monday morning because I got a load, so I had to go do that, go all the way back to San Antonio, get back Thursday evening, slept in the truck till noon, and then the next night the sleep was destroyed again traveling. It happens, but it's like the most. There's somebody wrote a book and said one of the most important things we do is sleep, and it's like it's really true. And if we don't get our proper rest, then we can't even function at 100%. I mean, people will tell you about their sleep until they don't sleep. And then will think that they sleep. I mean, I've just had people tell me that. And it's like, well, I know from experience that it's something, airline pilots get it, flight attendants, because they fly around the world. It's something that's a struggle, but it's something you need to be, if you want health, you have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, so. I feel like I've been able to find a good balance now. I can go 4 or 5 hours. I monitor all my vitals and biometrics, and I know when I've pushed too far, and then I can. The beauty of it now is I've almost developed that kind of military skill they talk about, especially the special forces kind of teams, SEAL teams, and that kind of thing, where they train themselves to be able to sleep anytime, anywhere. And the idea is there are going to be times where your life is going to depend on not sleeping, and you need to know how to push through that. And then you always sleep when you can. And I've actually gotten to the place now, which is incredible, where I can do that. I can go without sleep and just push through when there's stuff I really want to get done. And I can sleep almost any time, even to the point of there are days when I take a long nap and I think, boy, that is just going to wreck my sleep tonight. And then I'll have caffeine because it sharpens me a little bit and I can work on a project. And after a nap and caffeine, I can go back to sleep again. That was unheard of. For years, I talked about it. I fought it. My sleep was a wreck. I couldn't go to sleep when I was exhausted, much less when I've had caffeine and I'm a nap. And now for whatever I've done, and I did so many things, I can't pinpoint what it was. It was probably a combination of all of them. I can now sleep when I want to and when I need to, and I can function on very little sleep when it makes sense. It's kind of a great place to be.
Yeah. Years ago, before any of this, my first truck driving career, I worked for a company called Praxair, hauling cryogenics. Everything was day cab. They wanted the trucks running 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
We were a private fleet. It was a damn good job. But when you go to work at night and you have a 14, 15-hour day during the old logging cycle, I would go to work because we sleep seated. I would carry a bag. I would carry a pillow and a blanket. And somewhere after midnight, and I had an old wind-up clock because we got paid for safety breaks, I would go out there somewhere along the road and pull over in an exit ramp, put the seat back, turn the AC up, get the pillow out, set the clock for 2 hours. I would sleep for 2 hours because at the end of the day, the truck had to be back and I wanted to go home. And that's what I did to survive that.
Yep.
I got 2 hours of sleep and it worked. So people could laugh at that or whatever, but that's what I did. Yep. And I was the only one that did that. People were like, what are you doing? Because I'm going to sleep for 2 hours out there. That they're going to insist on this truck running like this. They're insisting on safety, and they never questioned that.
All right. Hey, Mark, I got to run. We're We did kind of the full.
We do too. She's sitting in the truck. She's sitting in the toilet out there.
Go have fun.
So
tell your daughter I said hi, and I look forward to trying to connect with you this week.
Okay, we will. We'll see you on Friday sometime, but I'll be in touch.
All right, take care. All right, everybody, we will see you back here tomorrow. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.